Welcome to the Ramblings, FAA's personal weekly ramblings. All opinions and commentaries are my own. What am I rambling about this week? Everything I do, everything I'm supposed to do, everything a student does, everything a student is supposed to do. This week, I just happened to be rambling about the Late Nellie. The fall 15th semester is coming to an end, and registration for the spring 16th semester may have closed already. That means nothing to the last minute Nellie. She's still trying to get her award package finalized. This is due to poor planning on her part, but yet she can't understand why the financial aid office is doing this to her. She's in the financial aid office because she tried to register, but she couldn't do it. Why am I rambling? I am rambling because the student is in trouble and she expects me, the financial aid officer or counselor, to fix it. What she already knows and she's ignoring is the fact that she is walking into my office because of what happened in a different office. There is an entire support team to help the student with their academic experience. Each support team is organized into a department, and we all work hard behind the scenes, so all the student has to do is click a button. Every department will have a different deadline. This actually works in the student's favor because it spreads the responsibility across time. The student can usually, if he or she prefers, meet the earliest deadline and get everything done at the same time. It doesn't work the other way. If the student tries to meet the latest deadline, that means he or she has missed several priority deadlines. So what's going on in November? Registration for the spring semester usually opens in November, but for some schools it also closes. And the biggest problem occurs at those universities, institutions, or schools that close the spring 16th semester in the month of November or December. So payment is due for any outstanding balance if the student wants to register. Then there's also a holiday that shuts down most government offices, not just the institutional offices, which makes the month of November a short month for the student. The deadline that is making the Late Nellie walk into the financial aid office in November is probably the registration deadline. The departments that are preventing the student from registering are the financial aid office and the bursars. Some schools refer to it as the cashier's office or the bursar's office. So what is it exactly that the financial aid office is doing to Nellie? Well, according to Nellie, the financial aid office is withholding her money, keeping her from registering for the classes she needs to register for, stressing her out, and not understanding what she's going through. And then, of course, sometimes we have the parents that start calling and, with the student's permission, ask about their accounts and demand to know what we are doing to their child. They start calling and they start saying things like, "How can you do this to my daughter? Why can't you just pay her bill? Don't you care that my daughter can't register? How can you do this to her?" The question that really gets to me is when a parent asks me, "How do you expect me to pay that?" Really? Did the parent really just ask me that? I mean, these are the things that are going through my head when I hear this question. It's not what I'm saying, but it's literally what's going through my head. Especially if the family qualifies for any type of need-based aid. How do they expect me to respond to that question? If the parent follows up with, "Well, you're just going to have to explain to my daughter that she can't go to your school anymore because you won't give her any financial aid. You're gonna break her heart. I hope you're happy now." Oh, goodness. Yes, some parents do go there. The kicker is when the student is in my office with the parent as they're telling me this. Of course, I just stare and I go over the award offer and then I refer them to the bursar's office for payment options because that's all I can do. Again, two very distinct departments. If the student has not applied for financial aid, I let her know that she can start the application at that time. I review deadlines, explain the difference between the bursar's office and the financial aid office. The primary difference is that the financial aid office qualifies the student for assistance in defraying the cost of higher education. If you qualify, we help you lower the bill charged by the institution. The bursar's/cashier's office bills the student for the education the institution is providing them. Big difference. Two distinct departments. So what can the financial aid office do for the student in November? We can do the same thing we would do if the student met our priority deadline. We have the student apply for and review the application to determine her eligibility for need-based aid or any other type of financial aid. Our process does not change. What may change is the time frame from school to school. If the institution has year-round admission, the financial aid office will be focused on processing applications for the new students. This doesn't mean that we will not process the application because she's already a current student. It means the processing time is going to be on the long end. Applications are usually processed in the order that they are received. That's just not best practice, but it also prevents discrimination. Some types of funding are limited, and as financial aid counselors, we cannot show favoritism to one student over another because that could be interpreted as discrimination. And as we all know, it is illegal to discriminate against any student. If the institution requires payment in full before a student is allowed to register, even if she is eligible for a full ride, the award package may not be completed before registration closes. If a student can still apply for financial aid in November, what is the financial aid application deadline? Well, the answer to that gets complicated. The only real answer I can give you is it depends. It depends on the funding program. The one hard deadline the Department of Education places on financial aid administrators is about 2 weeks before the end of the last semester the student is enrolled in. And that is as hard as it gets. Really, it's going to depend on the program. For the federal Pell Grant, as long as the student is enrolled in the spring 16th semester at the day of record, she can receive the grant for the following spring semester. The bursar cannot apply the fall 15th semester Pell Grant to a spring 16 balance. They have to reimburse it to the student, even if they still have a balance for spring 16. If the student does not enroll for the spring 16 semester, she still has 120 days after the last day of the fall semester to receive that Pell Award if she has the eligibility. Direct Stafford loans follow some of the same guidelines. The big difference is the financial aid administrator has to determine if the funds will arrive at the institution while the student is still enrolled. For example, if I offer a student a Direct Stafford loan and she accepts the loan mid-November, but does not complete her loan entrance counseling and master promissory note, she's not going to be able to receive the loan. If the loan entrance counseling and the master promissory note is completed mid-November, it can still take up to 14 business days before the funds are received by the school. If the student is dependent on this Direct Stafford loan to pay off her balance, the funds may not arrive before registration closes. There's nothing that the financial aid administrator can do there. Campus-based funding is usually exhausted in August. Even if this type of funding had no deadline, I cannot award a student money from a fund that has no more money. It's just not possible. Institutional funding availability will depend on the school the student is attending and the policy on awarding that institutional funding. The money set aside for the 15-16 academic year may be exhausted, or the student may run into the same enrollment issues as federal funding. So let's say the student finalizes or starts a financial aid application in November. There's a huge possibility that she's going to get caught in a catch-22. Even if we can help them, the funding may not be available before registration closes. The student then gets caught in the horrible loop of, I can't pay my bill, so I can't register for classes. I can't get my financial aid because I'm not registered for classes, and I can't pay my bill because I can't get my financial aid. I really hate it when this happens, but there's nothing I can do if the student waits until mid-November or late November to apply for financial aid or complete their application. Lessons learned. A student that is applying for or finalizing an application in November probably failed to plan properly. One way out of that loop One way out of the catch-22 loop is to come up with the money outside of the financial aid office. If that's not possible, then another option is to pay for late registration. Most institutions will offer late registration, but they charge a fee. Financial aid cost of attendance is not adjusted to include late fees. The student will be responsible for the late fee. Even if she receives an award to cover all of her cost of attendance. The student has to be ready with backup classes because the most popular classes probably won't be available for late registrants. This may not work for juniors and may cause a huge problem. Ideally, what you want to do is have a plan before the academic year starts. A financial aid priority deadline is usually going to be between the months of February and April of the year in which the fall semester starts. The fall 15 semester started mid-August of 2015. This means that an incoming college freshman's priority deadline was after the winter break during their senior year in high school. For a returning student, this occurred at the beginning of the spring semester for the previous academic year. These are my lessons learned and my recommendations. Remember, these are my opinions and in no way reflect the beliefs of the Department of Education nor the institution that employs me. So learn with me, plan with me. Visit my website, ramblingfaa.com. Follow me on Twitter at ramblingfaa. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. And thanks for watching. Come back every week to hear my ramblings.